to intercede on behalf of others. Not just pray for them, but we need to have the faith that God is going to answer these prayers, and God's going to take care of these matters in His will. I don't know, most of y'all are probably familiar with most of Paul's writings in the New Testament, and you know that this guy loved to place little prayers all throughout his letters to these churches and to these early pastors and apostles. He loved to place these letters of encouragement inside his letters. So today we're going to take a thing or two, or actually 7 from Paul in Colossians 1, 9 through 14, where he covers 7 different prayer requests to the Colossians that we each need to remember on a daily basis. We need to keep these things in mind. These 7 requests will not only change your life, but they're going to change the lives of everybody that's around you. They're going to change the lives of your community, your family, everybody. So let's turn there. Everybody turn with me to Colossians 1, and we're going to read verse 9 through 14. All right, if everybody will stand with me in reverence of the Scripture. For this reason also, since the day we heard of it, we have not ceased to pray for you, and to ask that you may be filled with the knowledge of His will and all spiritual wisdom and understanding, so that you will walk in a manner worthy of the Lord, to please Him in all respects, bearing fruit in every good work, and increasing in knowledge of God, strengthened with all power according to His glorious might, for attaining of all steadfastness and patience, joyously giving thanks to the Father, who has qualified us to share in the inheritance of the saints in the light. For He rescued us from the domain of darkness and transferred us to the kingdom of His beloved Son, in whom we have redemption for the forgiveness of sins. Let's pray. Father God, we just come before you this morning, God, just to say thank you. Thank you for allowing us to get here this morning, and thank you for just allowing us to freely worship your name. We live in a world with so many countries and so many places that they can't worship you, God, that they can't even study your word for fear of their lives, God. We just thank you that we're here this morning, able to study and learn your word. God, I just ask that you be with each and everyone here today, God. Just open their hearts and minds, God, so they're receptive to your word and everything that you want them to hear this morning. God, I just pray that you move through me, God. Just speak through me. Speak your life through me this morning, God. We ask these things in your precious and holy name. Amen. You guys can be seated. All right, so we kind of read Colossians 1. We're going to go forward just a little bit. Colossians 2, you don't have to turn there, even though it's probably the next page. But chapter 2 basically tells us why Paul was writing this letter to the church at Colossae. And he was writing this because they were having issues. The Colossians were having issues with false teachers becoming more prevalent in their church and in their teachings. And this kind of started, creeping into their Christian lifestyle. And these other doctrines were starting to be more prominent in what they were learning. And God doesn't like that. So the first request that Paul interceded on their behalf comes in verse 9. It says that God, Paul was praying that God filled them with the knowledge of His will and all wisdom and spiritual understanding. Now, spiritual in this context can be translated as given by the Holy Spirit. So Paul was praying that this knowledge that they would receive would be given by the Holy Spirit. He's praying that God Himself gives them this knowledge to understand what's true and what's false. So with these false teachers and stuff creeping in and being more prevalent, if they're getting this stuff from God, they'll be able to discern what's real and what's not real, what's the way to go. And we too need to follow this example and ask God to fill us with the spiritual discernment that's needed to walk and study His will, study His word. It'll just help us in our life as we go out and face this fallen world that we live in. But we need to not only pray for His knowledge, His wisdom, and understanding to be present in our lives. Verse 10, which is loaded with these prayer requests on behalf of Paul to the Colossians, it first tells us that we need to walk in a manner worthy of the Lord Jesus Christ. Whoa, that's loaded right there. I mean, just think about what Jesus did for us. Walk in a manner that is worthy of the Lord Jesus Christ. Christ came to this world, lived a blameless life, and died so that each of us could have a chance at eternal life, so we could have a relationship with God again. He came and sacrificed his own life so that we could live. And this is asking us to pray that we may walk in a manner worthy of the Lord Jesus Christ. It's kind of scary, I know, but that's the life we've got to live if we're going to reach other people for Christ. This is where something that I call 3 little C's and the big C come into play. So think about it. These 3 little C's are conversation, character, and conduct. So you've got 3 little C's: conversation, character, and conduct. And then, of course, your big C is Christ. You know, I'm doing the YMCA up here. But your big C is Christ, the head honcho himself. So think about this. Your character, your conversations, your conduct. When you're out doing your day-to-day stuff, when you're at work or when you're at home, family with the kids, or when you're at school, guys, are those 3 things pointing to the big C? Are your 3 little C's pointing to the big C? Because that's the kind of life that God's called us to live as Christians. If you claim to be a Christian and you're not aligning those 3 little C's to point towards that big C, you're not doing what God's called you to do. You need to check yourself. Jesus lived a blameless life. That's exactly what we're called to pursue as Christians. All right, so verse 10 says that we should first pray that we walk in a way that is manner worthy of the Lord Jesus. Then next it says that we should please God in all respects. Now the term walk, mentioned in the previous request, walk in a manner worthy of Jesus, the term walk is actually a Jewish metaphor. This Jewish metaphor, it's a metaphor for conducting or behaving oneself. So this way that we should be walking, we should be conducting or behaving ourselves in a positive light. So here's one of those C's again. Our conduct and behavior should be pleasing to God. Although we're cleansed of our sin and justified from the moment that we accept Jesus into our hearts, we're saved from eternal damnation. Are we still doing what's right? I mean, we live in a fallen world. Satan's there around every corner trying to tempt us, trying to confuse us. He's trying to get in the way of us and our relationship with God. So although we're cleansed and justified, we've got to remember we're still living in this fallen world. The devil doesn't just try to make you guys falter. He tries to make you guys falter to make other guys falter. You got other people that are looking upon you as a believer. If you falter, if Satan causes you to falter, no telling who else you're causing to sway in their beliefs and how they see God and how they see Him working in your life. So we got to watch what we're doing. We got to try to please God in all that we do. That's why it's imperative that we try to please Him in a manner that follows the teachings of Jesus. So these two kind of go hand in hand. Walk in a way worthy of Jesus, and walk in a way that's pleasing to God. The next request that we come to in this passage that Paul has for the Colossians is that they bear fruit in every good work. Now the fruit mentioned here in this passage is actually the fruit of salvation in a Christian life. Every single life on this earth is precious. Y'all agree? Every single life. And as Christians, our lives should have an eternal impact on this world. In some instances, we may not realize it, but if you guys are praying for God, if we're praying for God to do these things in our life, to let us be a positive influence to those that we come in contact with, guys, we're going to be tremendous blessings to countless people. We're going to save these guys. We can do this. Just think for 1 minute about all the different people that you come in contact with each day. I mean, gas mileage is improved. So transportation's crazy. We can work here in Sweetwater and travel to Knoxville each day. So you're building relationships with people, not just here, but in other towns. That used to not even be possible, even thinkable. We've got social media, we've got Facebook, Twitter, I don't know how many friends, how many followers we all have, but this stuff can go viral now with all the likes and retweets and shares and that kind of stuff. So just think about how many thousands of people that you can reach each day to bear good fruit just on the internet by doing, just watch the way you're acting online. I mean, you can be a positive influence to people even by just making a tweet each day or putting a Facebook post each day. There's no telling how many people we can reach with the good news that Jesus brings. Guys, this can only be accomplished if we allow Jesus to come into our heart and live through us each day. So we need to keep that in mind. Like I mentioned earlier, the Colossians, they were having a hard time bearing this good fruit because of false teachings and other pagan religions that were creeping into their messages and their lifestyles. So in the end of verse 10, Paul also prays that they increasingly grow in their knowledge of God. By being more knowledgeable about God's Word and His will in their lives, they can more easily refute the false teachings than they could before, because they have more understanding. They've got God's will on their side. For us, guys, that means striving on a daily basis to maintain a more intimate and deeper relationship with God. And the only way this is going to happen is if we are reading God's Word daily, if we are praying to God daily, if we are taking these 7 requests that we're going over this morning and praying these daily. It's the only way that this is going to happen. We need to talk to God about everything and do it anytime. I mean, some of the best heart-to-heart conversations that I have with God are at 5 o'clock in the morning while I'm in my truck on the way to work. I got quiet time, it's just me there, it's dark, no distractions. You got to have this time with God. And only then and there will you grow in your knowledge of God. Paul's next request, guys, that we too can apply, it's going to change lives of everybody around you, is in verse 11. May we be strengthened with all power according to His glorious might. Now, power, it was a huge deal in the Greek and Roman culture. I mean, I'm not talking just like mayor or president, that kind of power. I'm talking supernatural power. These guys were obsessed with giving offerings to gods and idols and doing like different rituals and spells and that kind of stuff to try to get some kind of supernatural power for their personal gain. So they could get well, so they could be healthy and healed and all this other crazy stuff. But the power that Paul talks about here, it is a supernatural power, but it's a spiritual power. He's praying that they're strengthened with the power of God, the divine power of God. And this is not for like a personal gain, a material gain. This is for their spiritual gain. Just as Paul is praying for divine strength to the Colossians so that they may spread the good news of Jesus' salvation, we too are trying to do the same things ourselves for each other on a daily basis. We've got to remember this in our prayer, that we're strengthened by God, His divine power, so that we can carry out His message and His word. And our God is the one and only Almighty. With His divine strength behind us, the gospel can and will reach the ends of the earth. All we have to do is ask God, continue to build that relationship with Him, and make that stronger. And my 7th and last point this morning, it's this relationship with God that fuels the final request Paul has for the Colossian church. It's giving thanks. May our lives express joyousness and thanks. So a strong relationship with God, I mean, it should be fueled by love, and that need for Him is so deep, so consuming, that we can't help but give Him all the glory and honor. It is that kind of love, that kind of relationship that we need to have with God. That we are not only asking Him for stuff, requesting stuff from Him, but we're also praising Him for what He is doing in our lives. Because if we are honoring God, if we are following God, He's going to answer these requests. But if we're just half-heartedly asking Him for stuff when we want something, when it's good for us, it's not going to happen. He wants that relationship with you. He wants that connection with you. So guys, we've got to build that relationship with Him and and give him thanks on a daily basis. Paul says in verse 9 that they pray without ceasing for the Colossian church. We should do that same thing for each other, for this community, for this church. Because we should be praying without ceasing. It means don't stop. Don't just pray when you wake up and when you go to bed. Pray all throughout the day. Don't just pray over a meal. Pray before, during, and after. Pray without ceasing, guys. This morning, we've examined 7 different requests that Paul was continually praying for the Colossians. He was doing this without stopping. He was praying these things always. The prayer that he prays asks God's people to grow in their knowledge and wisdom about who God is. But they also live in a manner that's consistent with Jesus' teaching and that's pleasing to God. But also that they act and represent God with knowledge and passion. Passion that'll see other lives saved thanks to Jesus and his sacrifice to us. As we too have also learned that we can use this model of prayer for ourselves. We can use these 7 requests for us and everybody that's around us. And we should. Because it's through Christ and his sacrifice that we're able to see through the darkness of this fallen world. And we have hope to spread to everybody that we come in contact with. About a Christ that sacrificed himself so that we will no longer perish, but we'll have everlasting lives. Everybody would just bow your head, bow, eyes closed. Where are you at this morning? Where's your relationship with God? Are you living in a manner that's pleasing to God? Are you living in a way that's following Christ and his teachings? Guys, if you're not, I encourage you to come when we have this invitation here tonight. Because I encourage you to come. Pray. We've got pastors up here. We're going to be here for you if you've got any questions about what you're doing. Like I said, the Colossians were having to deal with false teaching. If you've got questions about that, we're here for you. Guys, we also need to partake in the salvation that Jesus has offered us. He lived this blameless life. He lived the sinless life. He died for you. He died for you and your sins so that you can live again. So that you can have an eternal life. So you can be born again, guys. He did this for you. If you've been saved, but you're still not sure, I urge you to come on up here. If you've never been saved before, but God's tugging at your heart, he's saying, you need to be saved. He said, I'm here for you. I can help you. I'm here for you. I love you no matter what. Please come this morning. We would love to talk to you and help you work through this. Father, we just, again, thank you this morning. Thank you for allowing us to gather here, God. Father, I just feel this morning that there's some, God, that are here in this auditorium that need you, God, that need your saving grace in their lives, God, that need a life change. Father, please just let them know that we are here to help them along that pathway that they choose, God. That there is no other way to heaven but through you. Father, I just pray that they come this morning. I can sense it. Just let them know that we're here for them, that we will pray with them. Father, we ask these things in your precious name.